Oh, thank you very much. That's beautiful. It's the sea of brown. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Well, it is. It's good to see you again. It's very, very nice to be back. And for people who have been wondering what happened, I thought I'd open that. I'm sorry. What? What's going on? What are you doing behind my back? What's moving?
I'm turning your mic up. You're on fire. Cigar.
Okay. First the cigar reference. Now he's turning my mic up, and he says he's not. Anyhow. I'm just saying. But this is a nice place. Oliver and Michael said that reminded them of the Opera House for the Muppets. Guess what that makes these two guys over here, huh? There you go. There you go. Grumpy old men. I assume they've gotten everything cleared up, and other than that, I really don't care. And I'm getting so bored, they're taking pictures of the audience. That's great. I can't tell you how that makes me feel. Anyhow, for those, how many people remember back, I think it's about 3 years, to the convention in Washington, D.C.? Yeah, the George Takei extravaganza. Anyhow, the convention chair that year was Brian Walter, and he had called me several months before and asked me if I'd like to do the summaries again. I said, sure. He said, we'd like to go back to the old-fashioned way and do them at lunch. I said, oh, that's very cool. And he said, the lunch is going to be in a separate room, and there's going to be a runway stage and IMAG projection. And he said, you'll be surrounded by the vendors, and you can do as much time as you want. Yeah, I know. It's one of those things where you should have known if it's too good to be true. So I get there, and if you remember the room where they served the food, it was 2 stories down in a combination bomb shelter parking garage. The ceilings were 9 feet tall. The runway stage was a 4x4 piece of plywood on a 2x6, you know. And the IMAX screens were a couple of 27-inch TVs placed around the room with terrible sightlines. Now, I've been in this business for a long time, and I have learned that you should never put yourself in a situation where you can give less than a sterling performance. And this was one of those situations. So I told him, I said, I'm sorry, but I can't work in this room. He said, well, what do you mean? I said, I'll go slower. I can't work. I wish he was here. No, I don't. Well, no, I have my attorney right over here. Or over here, there he is. So anyhow, I said, you take me off the program. I said, no, I don't want to take you off the program. I said, how about you put me at the end of the morning general session, right before lunch, because people are only going to lunch. No, that would make it too long. I said, once again, let me explain the concept of time. You're taking 5 minutes out of here and adding it onto here. It's the same freaking time. He goes, no, that wouldn't work. Comes to me, he said, but continue to take your notes. Okay. Anyhow, and I did, just because that's what I do at these things. And he comes up to me and he said on the last day, he said, okay, I can get you on at the end of the last day for 5 minutes. And I said, and you want me to review 3 days of the convention? I'm going to need at least 15, possibly 20. And then he says, oh, then you're going to be cutting into the time of the closing speaker. I said, who is he? He said, Mark Scherenbrock. I said, he's a friend of mine. I want 5 minutes after he's done to review him. Well, he wasn't happy. But he acquiesced, and that's the way that we did it. Anyhow, I was very upset with the way that NSA went through this whole thing of promising one set of things and delivering something else. And the next year, I get a call from Tim Gard. And Tim says, you know, I know you're upset with the association, but would you consider being the MC for the CPAE night? And I'm thinking, that would be cool. I can do that. So he gets all the members of the committee. They all say, yes, this is who we want as our MC. They present it to NSA, where apparently the current president, who is now Brian Walter, has an ultimate say, some kind of, you know, King's X or something. And he said, I believe, as a direct quote, anybody but him. I know, it didn't sit right with me either. And so I figured this man is not acting like an association president. He's acting more like a king, you know, just going against the will of the committee and the general public. And hell, we got a country being run that way right now. I don't want to be a part of an association run that way. So I had to resign. John Dolan had also resigned. I believe Steve Rizzo resigned. And I may not be a member of NSA anymore, but I will always be a member of the Cigar Pig. And Ed Rigsby called me shortly after last year's convention. And he said, I got an idea. What if the Cigar Pig sponsored you as like a staff member, and then you could do the recap just for us? I said, well, now we have a deal. And so, you know, so I've been taking notes all week. This is the only place you are going to hear these jokes. And if somebody asks, well, you know, why can't we all see them? The correct answer, I believe, would be, fuck them. No, would be the correct answer.
That staff shirt looks great.
I'm sorry?
The staff shirt, I love it.
Would you like to see my staff? It's an option, but if you auction it off, who knows how much money we could get, you know. I'll tell you right now, it's not real long, you know. It's real short, but it's very, very thick. It's like a can of tuna with a little helmet on it. Army helmet. You know, I find it incredibly interesting. I was with NSA for 35 odd years, and in the beginning, all of the conventions were always in Phoenix in the middle of the summer. You know, and every year I use the same joke. Apparently we're here because the surface of the sun was already booked. And then they started moving them around, and I said, well, why don't we ever have one in Las Vegas? And they said, oh no, we don't want our members exposed to that kind of atmosphere. Welcome to Denver, kids. This is just the coolest thing that's ever happened to me is I went into a pot shop when I first got here, and no, I'm not sharing anymore. And no, I am until it's almost gone. Anyhow, I walked into this pot shop, and they take your ID to check it, and the woman looks at my ID. She goes, "You qualify for our 15% senior discount." It was so cool. So anyhow, where are we? Oh, here. Oh, I wanted you to know, too, that in the Cigar Pig suite, everybody was asked to bring a bottle of liquor from wherever they came from, and there's been some beautiful samples back there to try. And I have a new podcast designed just for baby boomers. And it's called Another Day Above Ground. And I do it with Carolyn Strauss, who is sitting right up here, and a very good friend of mine, perhaps the funniest guy I know, Tim Slagle, who is in Indiana. And we get together every week and do this podcast. And we're thinking, what can we bring from the baby boomer generation to give away at the Cigar Pig Suite? And so look for this little sign. You'll see it in front of a box of condoms. says need one, take one. And that's never truer than it is in this organization. So we're here for your safety. I don't know, I think the people stop having sex. You know, that happens after a while. All right. Let's kick it off with Saturday, which would be day one, I believe. And we checked into this beautiful hotel where every room is conveniently located at least a mile away from where you're going. What the hell is with that? I mean, you know, it's like if you go down to breakfast, and I went down to breakfast in the morning, I had 10,000 steps before I got to the food. And so, I'm going to have double, so I took 2 hard-boiled eggs. So then the convention started, and Dan Thurman came out with Mary Lou Peck, who is the executive in charge of NSA, and she came out with all smiles and giving us the good news that they have reduced our deficit by 20%. Deficit? You're a professional association. You should not have a deficit. You should be at least even, so somebody's doing something. If you have any financial expertise, ask to see the papers. And she said they've negotiated with hotels, too, a couple years down the road. Those hotels, just like this one, have yet to be built, but they will be in the middle of freaking nowhere. I'm sorry, when you can look out your window and see the airport, but it's still a $15 cab ride to get there, you're in the middle of nowhere. And then Dan talked about the NSA Health Trust. For years they've been trying to get health insurance, and apparently they finally have it for the members, and it's going to have a sliding deductible. You will only have to pay 50% of what you tell other people your keynote fee is. And you have to have 2 or more employees. What about people like me? I have multiple personalities. I should qualify. People say I'm good people, you know. And then he talked about the 5 NSA values. And the only one that really stuck with me was the one to use intentional language. If you plan on speaking, make sure you intend to do so. And you know who this is going to hurt? The Tourette's peg. Are any of the speakers who are on the main stage, are they here tonight? Because I'd hate to make you feel bad because I'm about to. And then he finally said, you know, look for the past president with their ribbons. Find a past president and stop them and ask them to tell you a story. And, you know, I don't know what kind of story they're going to tell, but, you know, really just instead look for Graham and, look for Bob Bradford and, you know, they're past perverts and ask them to tell you a story. It'll be much more lively. I needed the alliteration, John. Comedy's not perfect. Then Dan Burris and Mike Rayburn came out. They talked to themselves in a hologram form, you know, and when you have multiple personalities, you can do it without the technology. And they said to make Influence 19 your defining moment, which for me, it is right now. Then we had our first speaker, Kathy Dempsey. And she was confusing at first, and then it got more confusing. But she has a lizard named Lenny who, he looks exactly like the Geico gecko. And I wouldn't be surprised if it's the same guy doing double time. And she said that the lizard has to shed its skin or it will die. And she came up with a clever phrase that says, shed or you're dead. I got a better one. Shed happens. And if you're a girl lizard, you go to the she shed? I mean, you know, come on. I shed at the she shed. And then, you know, she told a story about her friend who was dying, a very sad story, and he wanted his funeral while he was still alive. And I'm thinking, what a great thing, except instead of a funeral, I would like a roast. Because Hey, Graham is already salivating. He goes, oh, I have one. Dale was a test tube baby. Wasn't worth a fuck then, it's not worth a fuck now. Thank you. You need a pen to write that down? And then after the funeral, she married the guy, which is very unusual order things, but really not that bad of an idea when you think about it. You know? Are you doing okay over here? You're looking the more conservative version over here. Are you all right? The grumpy old man, you doing okay up there? All right. Oh, there's a guy pumping his arm. So apparently the meth is kicking in. Oh, and then she ended her program by having everybody stand up and wave their arms around, you know, and she said, and shed your stuff while you're doing that, and then a giant stuffed lizard comes out on the stage for no good reason, and I think it was just a big pile of shit. And And then next up was Alex Knoll. This is the 14-year-old kid who developed an app when he was 9. When I was 9, I was delivering newspapers door to door. When Ford Sakes was 9, he was doing Hard Time. That's one of my favorites. But he has the Ability app, which tells handicapped people where the nearest handicapped accessible areas are. I would like to see him develop another one called the Sensibility Act, which shows you where all the stupid people are, so you can avoid them, you know. All right. Hold on, I lost my place. Just talking amongst yourselves. Oh, there we. Oh, here we go. This is then the closing speaker that morning general session was, or evening general session was Eric Weinmeier, a man who is totally blind and climbed to the summit of Mount Everest. At least that's what they told him he did. They could have put him on a non-stop Stairmaster for a couple of weeks and occasionally threw ice water at him, you know? And why in the world would he ever want to climb Mount Everest? Ain't for the view. And then he was kayaking down lava falls, and he said that he, and I quote, pulled his skirt, which I think was a mean trick to pull on a blind guy in the first place, you know? Here, put this on. It's what all the kayakers wear, you know? And who took the pictures? They should get credit for going on the climb, too, for crying out loud. But the thing that he said that touched me most, he said, and again I quote, you have to reach out in the darkness and find something to grab onto. And that got me through the night. Okay, that brings us to Sunday, which I already talked about the breakfast. You know, the only thing that was different between the what do they call it, reception they had the first night, and breakfast the next morning was no big giant butterflies. And they're wearing those big dresses, you could almost crawl up under there until you get caught. And then, okay, after breakfast, because I was down there, I took an Uber back to the ballroom. And I did it to make sure I was there on time to hear Ford Sakes, or, as I like to call him, Fred Sucks. Which, by the way, is Ford here? He should be here. He's not here? Okay, then he's getting both barrels. Now, I think that would be a great name for a rock and roll band. Fred Sucks, everybody. Let's hear it for him. All right. And then Ford said he went to the joint at a young age, but it was there that he learned how to paint. Of course, he didn't have to be that neat. Everything was gray. And then when he got out of jail, he decided to start a painting company because he had the experience now and a 38, which he used to go get a brush. And then, he said that when you need help, go to a pro. You would not go to a fat person to become skinny. You know who owns 50% of Weight Watchers? Oprah Winfrey. And you need to get Google reviews. I'm not even sure. I get all my reviews on Yelp, They say, ooh, the show was a little spicy for some. Other people threw up. And then finally he said, again, this is a quote, "It's not what you know, it's how you execute," which is also the motto of The Sopranos. Same thing. And then next out came Al Walker, and he was doing his new one-man show, Burl Lives Matters. That one works on several levels. Think about it for a while. And then the session... If there's any kids, get them out of the room now. The session was closed out by Shalita Burke, who was she's a pop star, but she didn't sing or anything, but she likes Twitter, making her very presidential. And she said she believes that as humans, we are all geniuses. Really? Take a stroll through Walmart, sister. Tell me what you think. And then she said that she spoke about archetypes, which I guess are certain kinds of men who look just like Archie from the comics. I don't really know. And if you find a guy like this, you make him your super fan. And then I kind of got lost or fell asleep. I don't remember. But the last thing I remember her saying was that your followers will become a reflection of you. Welcome, my fellow sickos. Thank you very much for being here. Then they presented the new CSP Awards. Do we have any new CSPs here with us tonight? 1, 2, 3, 4. Congratulations. Congratulations, and you now are entitled to a special title, just as we call the Queen Your Highness, we call CSPs your CSPness. And there you go. I'm going to sit on here. Everything's starting to move. I think the ship has hit some rough water. Oh, you're too kind. Thank you very much. But
I have experience with mics.
Yeah, I would imagine. And Bob's and Ken's and Larry's and... It's okay. I'll back away like I do in real life. Thank you very much, Rob. Oh, the only thing could make this better is if I was getting paid. All right, then. Then finally on Sunday we experienced, or on the Sunday morning we experienced Phil Hansen, and his program was called Embrace the Shake, which is really excellent information for any man going to the washroom. Just really embrace the shake, make it yours, make it yours. And he was a very gifted artist, but then he got a palsy in his hand and he couldn't paint straight anymore, so he started taking up all other kind of things to paint with, and he painted with his shoes, his hands, word on paper, even did a sculpture of Jimi Hendrix out of matches and then lit it on fire. Sculpture should have been Richard Pryor. I told you they'd boo Carolyn. And then he painted with hamburger grease even and made a picture out of there. And I wonder what he would use when he copies those Flemish painters. Flemish painters. That one's just in there for me, and I don't really give a darn. And then he had us make little tiny pictures of different things on those little tiny pieces of paper. And, one was where you live, what's important to you, what can't you live without. I drew wieners on each one of them. Every one of them. Can't live without it. That's pretty much where I live. Anyhow, I can't wait to see this thing tomorrow. And you can look for my 6 little wieners that are in there. They're not life-size. No, it was only a 1-inch tile. I did not trace them. Yeah, we'll get to the auction later, sister. You just wait. And then Rebecca from the Colorado chapter, is she here? She said that the cheeseburger was invented in Denver, which I never knew. So Denver really transformed the hamburger. Why? So that Phil Hansen could use it as a paintbrush. Oh, see, I needed more laughter because this was my timing break. I was going to come over while they caught their breath.
Wait, I got something.
That's quite all right, really. I'm almost done. So that brings us to today. And today started out with my BFF, Brian Walter, coming out on stage pitching NSA swag, and he was dressed in layers, wearing all the different clothing that they were offering, and I swear to God, he looked like a homeless guy on Lower Wacker Drive, which is it's a good look for him. Lower Wackers is not a good area in Chicago. So. And then we heard from Shalita Burke again, and she talked about blockchain, which is what I thought that they hooked the prisoners to when they took them out on a road crew, but that's not it. It's some new fancy schmancy internet thing, allows you to see everybody's transparent experience, which is disturbingly creepy. I mean, how, people can go into your phone. You go into my phone. Those pictures are not mine. Sure, the clothing is transparent, but the pictures are not mine. And now you can get paid in Bitcoin if you have a private key to your cyber wallet where you keep your invisible coins in Rainbow Ponyland. You want to pay me? I want pictures of dead presidents and Benjamin Franklin. That's what I want. And then she talked about artificial intelligence, which we need because there's really not enough real intelligence to go around anymore. And she said the human species and the machine species are going to merge. Now, how's that going to happen? You're going to have to get jiggy with it, your laptop? I don't know what the... I tried phone sex once, and the phone never did work right again. But I got it in them little holes. Anyhow, you can edit this all down, Oliver. But she said, AI will take over all of your daily responsibilities, leaving you more time to binge watch Netflix. And then next up came Nito telling us that there weren't any kind people anymore. Well, that's because the other people keep pissing us off, you know? Let's put the blame where it stands, you know? And then he awarded the Philanthropist of the Year to Jeannie Roberts. I didn't even know she collected stamps, but that's... I had that written another way. This one's even better. And then she said that when you give to a charity, you get name recognition, you know, which is why I have instituted Dale's Home for Unwed Fathers and Dale's Halfway House for girls who don't go all the way. And then the best thing about the cigar break, no HR anywhere in sight. And then this led us to Vern Harnish, who interviewed Dr. Robert Gialdini. Is that the pronunciation of the? I'm sorry, Robert Gialdini. Anyhow, he said that if you own a candy store and you give away a little piece of candy, the customers come in, your business will increase by 40%. I want to know why they don't do that at the pot store. Welcome, sir. Try a gummy. Enjoy your shopping experience. And then he said if you're approached by the client, you know, by the meeting planner with a problem, you should always try and oblige them, you know, as much as possible. And if they thank you, never ever say no problem. Instead, you take the Godfather defense, you know. Since I did this thing for you today. There may come a time in the future. And I'll tell you when that time is. Oh, it got me so excited I lost my place. All right, and then he said to compliment people, always compliment people. And I would just like to say that right now you people are very, very good looking. I'm higher than a freaking kite right now, but you people are very good looking. Oh, that's another one of his jokes, isn't it? And then, let's see. Oh, then they gave away the philanthropy award to John Maxwell, and they brought up Nito, or not the philanthropy. What was that? What is it? Master something. And then they brought up Nito to interview him, and Nito got on stage, followed by the cameras from Dateline. Only 6 people were going to get it, but God bless you. And then Nito asked John, he said, what made him leave the church? And basically it boiled down to the fact that the church people were too damn cheap to buy his book. And then he asked him another question, and the guy launched into his Q&A keynote. I thought, oh man, this is never going to stop. And he said, you have to value people. And I'm thinking, value people? Aren't those the people you see outside the dollar store? Value people, holy crap. Then he asked, what's the danger that could affect corporate leadership? I would say, you know, if you're a CEO, banging somebody in the sales department would probably be a big danger. So. And Mike Rayburn said that NSA should feel like family. To me, it does, because I don't get along with them either. Well, I only have a few more minutes, then they have to launch into everything. Thank you very much, but you can get it as soon as I'm off the stage. Oh, and Irene's shouting out shit she wants, so just the beer will be fine. All right, and then that brings us to our final speaker of today. It was Orlando Bowens. And he started by checking your reflexes. Remember, he said, put your hands on your knees, and every time he said clap or something, you're supposed to clap, and then every time he shouted a number, and then they try and catch you, and it was just me and everybody else think you were playing some form of Simon Says. It's exactly what it was, you know, and for this, he became a speaker. And then he told a speech about, he did a speech at a prison, and one of the inmates came up to him afterwards and said, "Where were you, man?" And then the guy took his wallet. And then he got beat up by 2 rotten cops and wound up in jail for something he didn't do. And then they caught the cop and charged him with something else, and they were going to let him go from jail. But he said no, he wanted a trial where he was pronounced not guilty. Then he sued everybody, and now he's a speaker. That's his story in 30 seconds. So. And then he said that you know, it was destined for him to be here, and if Dan Thurman had asked him to walk here from Toronto, that he would have done it. And Dan said, no, just walking from your room to breakfast to the theater ought to really take care of it. That, my friends, is hopefully not my final summary for the Cigar Peg, because I'll be back here again. But thank you very much. I appreciate it. God bless you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.